Hi everyone, I'm Morten. I am a senior support consultant here with the customer experience team, and I'm excited to welcome you to the latest version of ClickLearn, and these will be the release notes for version 12.1.56.0. In this update, we've listened to your feedback and delivered some of the most requested improvement along with a host of bug fixes, all focused on making your ClickLearn experience smoother, faster, and easier than ever. So, for our major enhancements, I'm thrilled to share that we focused on 3 major and highly requested improvements that many of you have been waiting for. So, the first one is that you can now custom crop instruction screenshots for greater clarity and to demonstrate, exactly what you want. If something is outside the border of the standard crop in your template setting, you're now free to do whatever you want without using groups. Plus, you can now control the image quality for the preview for faster loading times. So, by default in ClickLearn, we've always had 100% in ClickLearn Attain. Basically, that means you're using an uncompressed PNG image, both for your produced content, but also for your preview. And that may result in loading time on some systems. A full HD image is around 8 megabytes per screen, and loading that, in full quality, so that's full 8 megabytes for every single screen on your whole recording, right? It'll take a while. So now we've added so you then can use compressed JPEG images. Basically, you control a compression level on your preview. It doesn't really matter that much. I mean, in terms of the quality, you will be hard pressed to notice. In the produced content, if you throw it up on a 65-inch TV, sure, you might be able to see that the quality is lower, but in your preview or on a standard laptop, you will not notice. But the loading time, much greater, huge difference. And then we've added a new setting for customizing the number bubble placement on annotated screenshots as well. This is a template setting you can set. And basically, when you have an annotated screenshot with a bunch of annotations, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth, you can now control where the little number placement bubble is placed, because sometimes the default position will kind of obscure what you want to show, right? So let me just pop into ClickLearn here and let me show you how the custom crop is now possible. Okay, and then you can go to Image Editor. And now you can actually do whatever you want on every single screenshot, right? So you are free to adjust the crop any way you see fit. So you can see I can resize this any way I want now, which is super nice, because maybe it cuts right here where the timeline is, for example. And now I can include that if I wanted to, yeah? So I'll just save and close, and everything looks fantastic again. So the second big item was the loading times. So where you can adjust the preview speed is in here, right? You click on settings, and then we made a new option here called editor settings. And in editor settings, you can decrease the quality, okay? Personally, I would recommend for you to go around probably 75%, something like that. I think that's a good balance between very fast loading time and decent enough quality for you to see what's going on the previews, okay? That's what I would recommend. The other setting we had was for the annotated screenshots, where you can choose where the numbered bullets go. So the little bubble with the number in it. You would come into Publishing Template, and then you click on Entity Recording. And in here you have a instruction screenshot, and then you have annotation numbered lists. And here you can see it goes to the right, yeah? This is the same place as you change the group as well. So when you have a group, basically you choose where does the number go. The same thing for annotations, you can now also control it. Some people like to go in the bottom, so right bottom or right top or whatever, so it doesn't cover anything on your screen. Really depends. It depends what you're annotating, right? Because if you're annotating a lot of menu items, a lot of items that has a little drop down on the right that you're clicking, you might not want to cover it on the right, yeah? So it depends. It really depends on what you're doing. So coming back to the rest of the notes, let's dive into the projects. We've made several improvements for local projects now. So you will always see the project lists when multiple people are working on the same project. So basically the issue that we had is that when you open ClickLearn and you had a list of all your available projects, they wouldn't load. That's been fixed. And coming to recordings, we've had a really big change here, which is a fix that has been plagued many users, including myself. Basically, that's when you do a replay and you suddenly feel like, hey, I need an extra step. So you stop the replay and you add an extra step and you insert it before whatever you were doing, and then you continue the replay. The problem was that it would sometimes exit the whole replay and not, continue, which is a big problem if you need to like add a step in the middle of everything. You can now do that. It's fixed, so that's great. Then we have adding a PowerPoint slide as an image. That now works. So when you add a PowerPoint slide as a note, that now works. We had a problem where it wouldn't load the slide correctly. So that's basically when you use a content block and you select an image, and then you can actually add a specific slide. So that's super nice. You don't have to just use images anymore. You can now grab slides too, and it works. So then we have an issue where a lot of people had this problem, unfortunately, that recordings, they got stuck as inaccessible. So they were showing up red in ClickLearn. And when they try to open them, they would say file not found or something like that. That's now been fixed, and you should see this a lot less at least. So that's great. Now when you create a recording, you can now change the folder in which it's being placed, which is really nice for you people who have a ton of subfolders. This now works because we had an issue where it wouldn't place it correctly, but it now does. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, let me just show you. So basically, if we were to do a new recording, I can now choose down here in which location it's going to go. And it will then show me all my folders, and I can choose where it's supposed to be, right? I don't have any folders in this project, but if I did, you would be able to see it. We've also done it so that the date format in the metadata is now consistent with your system settings. And to show you, jump back again to show you what that means, because that might be a little confusing. When you have your date here, it says, for example, last updated. This is a metadata, right? Or the metadata you have specifically in your recordings. If you go to system region, then you will see the date here, right? So this date is the format that you will see in your ClickLearn, yeah? So here we have month, day, and then the year. That's how it's set up here. If I change it here, it will also change in ClickLearn. I believe you need to restart ClickLearn, but it's fairly easy to change. So we've had some people where they have regional settings set to, let's say, US, for example, and then they are actually working in the UK, and then their dates are they're not what they expect, right? Or the other way around. Okay, so the user who's using ClickLearn, it will display according to your local settings. So speaking of the recording editor, other things that we have changed is that redacted areas when there is a question pop up in front, but that was not blurred. This has been fixed. Basically, it means that if you had redacted or blurred something and you had a flow option where it popped out a question for the user, then it would stop blurring while the question was there. That's been fixed. Then we had an issue with the custom cursors. It will convert from a PNG to a JPEG, so it will mess up the graphics and like make a square around the cursor that's moving around on the screen and the show me. Whenever you had the quality lowered to less than 99%, so basically using JPEG, that's been fixed as well. Then we had an issue where cropping an instruction screenshot, the redact and hotspot options were hidden. They are now displayed when you're adjusting a screenshot. In a group, now you have two options, right? You can ungroup. So if you have grouped a bunch of steps and you click on ungroup, it will just delete the group setting, okay? And return the steps to quote unquote normal. Or you can remove the group with a delete option, which will actually delete the group and all the steps within it. So it will completely wipe them out. It's also very nice. Then you have step selection in the data editor. That's now possible from the preview too. That's super nice when you do replay troubleshooting or replay adjustments or whatever. So to just pop into ClickLearn and show you what that means. So basically, when you're in the data editor, there was a bug where you could not click on these steps to navigate. You can do that now, okay? So when I click on this, it will jump to this part. When I click on this, it will jump to that part and so forth. We had a bug where you couldn't navigate by clicking these, which was super frustrating. So that's been fixed. And then we had an issue with the video editor flickering if you had excluded steps. This has now also been fixed. We've had some cases in the past of video flickering, but yeah, the latest one is now done. So yeah, you can rest your eyes upon a smooth video now. Now let's have a bit of a look at the structure. Okay, so custom icons in the panels, they now update when they are selected. We had a problem where they wouldn't update correctly. So when you add custom icons to your project or your structure, sorry, then it works. Then we've added a validation step for the Excel import. So when you import a structure via Excel, it now checks and validates that it's a correct Excel, because before you could just add any Excel and it would then crash ClickLearn. So now we actually have a validation check, so this will not happen. For localization, we've added a really great deal of things. So when you click on the Start Translate button, so that it translates like everything at once, now you will not see blank pages anymore, where you had to like go through different pages to get to the ones you need. It will just immediately show you the missing steps if you've selected that. And then we had an issue where group names were not displayed, so it would look like they were localized, but they were not. That's also been fixed. So if you use group names, they will now be localized. And as a really big performance boost, when you are saving your localization settings, which could take a while when you've localized everything and want to save, prior to this release, it would update everything. So you made a change to one recording localization, and it will then save all the recordings in the whole project. That took forever, right? Now it's only going to save the changes that you've made. So if you are making changes to, let's say, 3 or 4 recordings at once, that has not been localized, you run the localization part and doing the ones that you need, it will only save those and not all of them. So huge difference. Coming over to assets, when you move a child folder to a roots folder, that now works. We had an issue before where it would throw an error. So now you can move your asset folders around again. Coming over to publishing, we've had a lot of issues where publish was stuck and it wouldn't go to like the final liftoff page. And this was an error on the production server. It wasn't just a UI thing or something like that locally on your computer. It was actually a problem on the production server. That's been fixed. Coming over to settings, the language tablet editor now supports rich text editing for the new recording steps and new recording steps after. So basically what this is that when you create a new recording, you can have it create like a predefined set of sections and text blocks and stuff like that. So you could have like an objectives, a step, and a summary in the end, or whatever you need, right? This now supports rich text, so you can make it look a lot nicer. Coming over to APT, iterations configured as variables now actually use the data iteration table. We had an issue where it would just ignore the table. So an iterator is when, let's say I have a process where I create some user accounts and I have a first name and a last name. I can now, for example, create an iterator where I would list a bunch of first names and a bunch of last names. And what it will then do is that it will create new accounts until that iteration table was depleted. So if I had like five different names, it would do that 5 times. Okay. So this is a little bit different from scenarios, where a scenario you would have to define the entire test with all the data. This is just for parts of it, right? So it would use the default, quote unquote, and then it's only for the parts that has an iterator attached that it will repeat it. So yeah, this now works. And then we can also delete unused variables from tests to keep things tidy. Before, there was no option to delete a variable. So you've added like a ton of variables to try things out. You couldn't really clean it up without having to do a whole new test again. For you dashboard lovers, please take note that the video complete and OData now updates correctly for recordings with excluded steps. We had an unfortunate bug where if you excluded steps in your recording, the video complete would not submit that it was completed in no data, which is a big problem because a lot of people exclude steps rather than delete them in case they need those steps for later replay, so they can re-include them, then replay the recording, and then they can re-exclude them for cosmetic reasons, right? And now we can see the total step count in the OData. So that's super nice. It can give you an idea of, how do people fare on very long recordings, and like, do they stop in the middle of the videos, and it can give you some sort of behavioral idea, right? And it can also maybe tell you, like, okay, someone did this recording, but it only had 45 steps. Did we publish the wrong one or whatever? Many reasons for you to be able to see this. Anonymous users are no longer displayed in the OData for private projects. We had a bug where there would be like a cache that would be running while you had the project private, so it would actually trigger anonymous user entries, which are not. The only time you should see anonymous users is that, let's say you published a project as public for the first time, and you go and check it out as anonymous user because you just want to quickly publish it, see how things work. And then you're like, oh wait, we need this private, so let me just make it private. Then of course your anonymous users are still available unless you deselect them when you create your export URL. Those ones are still there because they're supposed to be there. They were actual clicks, okay? And then we've had some inconsistencies between the data and the dashboard downloads and the OData, and this is now aligned, so it matches up. Then we had an issue with SCORM. If we want to talk about SCORM for a bit. We had an issue where SCORM videos did not display correctly. If you click in the expanded view, it would like show half of the video if you had AI avatars enabled with SCORM. This is now fixed. Coming over to UXP, the expand button and volume slider now works more reliably. We had an issue where it was a little bit inconsistent. It works. Then the overall UXP video player experience is improved. As you may know, we have a very modern video player in UXP. There was a bit of garbage code that was not really doing anything. It was just there. We've removed it and cleaned it up so it's more nice and tidy, and it runs faster and it's more reliable. Now, if you added step to a feature tour, they are now put in the correct order. We had a problem where I would sometimes put the last step first and then continue. So it was a bit strange, but that's been fixed. I mean, I'm glad we're finding these bugs. And now a big one for UXP is that for finance and operations, we now have the context IDs available, okay? So basically that means that you can manipulate where your content goes. So if you're deep inside a sub-module somewhere, and this work instructions you've done is not suggested in the UXP, you can now manipulate it by finding the specific context ID and then add it, okay? You can do that using the topic ID metadata. So that is now available for finance operations, which is great. And then finally, overall performance. We've added a lot of performance improvements, especially in projects where you have localization analytics. So we solved like around 80 bugs, and then we did some further enhancements. Yeah, you should definitely see a great improvement, especially with project with a lot of languages and a lot of localization stuff. So basically what it would do is that it would write all the localization data into every single recording. So every single recording basically have like an XML file where it has all the text that you see in the recording in all the languages. It would just keep writing all that all the time. So that's been fixed. It's huge performance difference just from fixing that. But yeah, that's a wrap for now, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you up to speed in the next video. Thank you.